From Look Back in Anger, we have the character of Jimmy Potter as the archetypal angry young man and discussing how his personal frustrations reflect the broader social discontent of post war Britain. John Osborne's play Look Back in Anger introduces Jimmy Potter as an archetypal angry young man, a term used to describe disaffected post war British youth who express frustration and rebellion against social stagnation and class inequality. Jimmy's character encapsulates the personal and societal discontent that defined Britain in the 1950s, a period marked by economic hardship, rigid class structures, and a loss of identity among the working class. Look Back in Anger was written during a time which Britain was recovering from World War II but struggling with economic limitations, class divisions, and diminished imperial pride. Jimmy Potter represents the voice of the new frustrated generation caught between traditional class expectations and the desire for authentic meaning and equality. Through Jimmy, Osborne critiques the complacency of the upper middle class and the disillusionment of a working class individual educated but trapped in menial work. His anger is both a personal response to his perceived failures and a symbolic outcry against post war social injustice. The introduction of rage and alienation from the play's outset, Jimmy's anger is evident in his harsh criticism of society, his wife Alison's family background, and his own life circumstances. His bitterness is both specific and broad, targeting personal relationships and national identity. Jimmy declares, I hate it. I hate this country like hell. I can't bear this country anymore, and yet I can't leave it. This encapsulates his inflicted, conflicted sense of belonging, deep resentment mixed with an inability to escape his social environment. This quote sets the tone for his role as a spokesman for the angry young frustrated by Britain's unwillingness to change. His aggressive and often spiteful interactions with Allison and his friend Cliff reveal his internalized frustration. He projects his anger onto those closest to him, demonstrating the psychological toll of his social alienation. Jimmy's actions frequently stem from selfish motives, and the abusive behavior towards Allison vandalizes any heroic traits he might possess. Then we have comment on the ending of the play Look Back in Anger. John Osborne's Look Back in Anger ends on a complex and emotional charged note that encapsulates both despair and fragile hope, reflecting the cyclic nature of the character's struggles and the broader theme of post-war disillusionment. The ending is significant for its portrayal of reconciliation between Jimmy and Allison, which symbolizes a tentative bridge over their previous emotional and social conflicts, as well as a recognition of shared human vulnerability. The conclusion of Look Back in Anger, after escalating tensions between Jimmy Potter, his wife Allison, and Helena Charles, culminating in emotional crisis. Set in post-war Britain, the play interrogates issues of class, identity, and personal despair. The ending reflects both the persistent social malaise and the possibility of personal understanding. It avoids social resolution, emphasizing ongoing emotional complexity rather than neat closure. At the climax, Allison returns to Jimmy after suffering a miscarriage, an event that profoundly alters her perspective and softens her previously distant and complacent demeanor. Her return is complicated by pain and humility, which contrast sharply with her earlier detachment. Jimmy, who has been left emotionally isolated after Helena's departure and amidst his friend Cliff's growing independence, finds himself confronting the fear of loneliness and loss. Jimmy's softening attitude is revealed in his heartfelt appeal to Allison. I may be a lost cause, but I thought if you loved me, it need not matter. Then we have the symbolism and imagery in Look Back in Anger with special significance to the beer and the squirrel game. This game is very important for the understanding of the total play, and it is a very important question as well. John Osborne uses symbolism and imagery extensively to deepen the emotional and thematic resonance of the play, with the bear and squirrel game standing out as a crucial symbol that reveals much about the complex relationship between Jimmy and Alison Potter. The symbolic game, along with other imagery such as the trumpet, the ironing board, and the newspapers provide insight into the characters' inner lives, social struggles, and the broader post war British context. Within the mid 1950s, Look Back in Anger captures the frustrations of the post war generation caught between rigid class structures and personal aspirations. Osborne employs symbols to express the character's psychological states and social conditions, indirectly yet powerfully. The bear and the squirrel game, in particular, becomes a metaphorical space where Jimmy and Allison transit their turbulent marital conflicts and societal pressures, assessing a simpler, more innocent form of connection. The bear and squirrel game is a vivid and recurring symbol in the play. Jimmy and Allison imagine themselves as these animals. Jimmy as the bear, a large, strong, and sometimes aggressive creature representing masculine strength and frustration. Allison as the squirrel, small, delicate, and nervous, embodying feminine vulnerability and social constraint. The stuffed animals kept on their dressing table serve as a physical reminder of this game and its symbolic power. Escape from harsh realities, the game acts as a psychological refuge for the couple, allowing them to momentarily set aside their anger, class conflict, and emotional pain. Osborne writes that they imagine themselves as little furry creatures with little furry brains, living in a world with only simple needs food, shelter, and cleanliness, where the complication of human society and their troubled marriage cannot intrude. Symbol of marital failure and complexity. The game also reflects the failure of Jimmy and Allison's marriage to thrive in adulthood. Their animal personas reveal their need to retreat from complex human emotions into a more instinctive, uncomplicated relationship. This can be read as a coping mechanism against their emotional estrangement and societal frustrations. Then we have the character of Cliff, or Cliff as a foil to Jimmy in Look Back in Anger, and how it is significant to the contrast to the play's themes. John Osborne utilizes the character of Cliff Lewis as a foil to Jimmy Potter, heightening the play's exploration of post-war British social tensions and individual emotional responses to alienation. Cliff's contrasting personality and the demeanor serve to emphasize Jimmy's explosive anger, personal frustrations, and complex psychological turmoil, thus deepening the play's major themes including class struggle, interpersonal relationships, and social discontent. Cliff Lewis is a poorly educated working class man of Welsh heritage who works with Jimmy at the sweet stall and shares the flat, but he is more easygoing and less intellectually volatile than Jimmy. He is described as warm, loving, and humorous, traits that contrast sharply with Jimmy's irritable and sarcastic temperament. While both men come from similar social backgrounds, Cliff accepts his lot with quieter acceptance, rarely displaying Jimmy's anger towards the upper class or British society. Instead, Cliff is easy and relaxed, almost lethargy, with the rather sad, natural intelligence of the self taught. This makes Cliff a stabilizing presence in the turbulent household, grounding the play's conflicts and illuminating Jimmy's emotional intensity by comparison. Cliff Lewis acts as an essential foil to Jimmy Potter with his calm, good natured, and tolerant demeanor, emphasizing Jimmy's intense anger and alienation. I think it will be enough for Look Back in Anger. Thank you.